Hi, my name's Michael and welcome to How to Fly a Pig. Today we're going to begin with the concept of start with knowledge. Start with knowledge can be interpreted in two ways, and it's important to consider how each of these may affect our learning experience or our ability to progress a new skill or activity that we're looking to engage into. Our first interpretation of start with knowledge is that we are going to begin our process with gathering the knowledge that we need. So therefore, we're doing the research and finding the information that we believe is going to be relevant to beginning the process or starting the process. Our second interpretation is that we start once we have the knowledge. So essentially what we're looking at is two different points in which we can say that we've begun our journey. This is relevant for a number of reasons. Our first one is if we start with knowledge, we acquire the knowledge we need, then begin into our process, what we can find is that the knowledge that we have gained at the beginning of the process is not as relevant or applicable in the way that we would want in our particular situation. As we're considering two different starting points, essentially for ourselves, we need to know that when we have begun into this process. For example, if I do all of the research around the topic but don't actually take any steps to apply that knowledge, then can I truly say I've started? Yes, I've gained the knowledge, but without that application, is there any value to having that knowledge? The second step of this of start, once we have the knowledge, implies that there is work that needs to be done prior to beginning into the task. And yes, it is possible to simply jump in and have a go at whatever it is that we're looking at, and there are times when this is to be encouraged. It also will help to highlight for us what are the things that we should know, but also what would have been useful for us to know prior to beginning this experience. That is why when we're considering each of these things, we're thinking about the learning process. It doesn't matter where we are in this journey, it's more about how are we gaining value from the interactions and the application that we're having with this particular knowledge. Let's take the example of we're beginning to learn a guitar. We haven't done anything at this particular point, so we're going to start with finding some information that might be relevant in terms of how this will look for us. There's a range of different resources that we can use for this, such as the internet, looking at videos, anything where people have an opinion about what the starting place will or could look like in terms of the instrument. That's going to start to bring us some options. And those options might exist as what type of guitar, what style do we want to learn, to what level, or what particular techniques are going to be useful for us. As we engage into that process, then we don't necessarily have the application of the skills to understand how those decisions or those options are going to play out in the long run. We could also dive straight in, purchase our guitar, watch some videos that are going to help us to learn some basic chords or even some riffs and things of our favorite songs. And very quickly we're going to feel like we're making progress. The further that we progress down this journey, we might start to find that there are some inefficiencies in the way that we play. And actually we've missed some of the initial techniques that would have been useful to us. And maybe this is where the role of a teacher or an expert would assist us as part of that process. However, we can see with these two examples, one, we've started with a whole lot of knowledge or a whole lot of information where we have to make decisions without actually knowing what the application of this looks like, versus the application where we don't have that knowledge base to make the best decisions about what it is that we're doing. And with each of these, when we come back to our idea of start with knowledge, we can see that the key word is start. It's not going to be perfect in terms of where we begin in the learning process. There are times when we do want to jump into something that we're going to learn very quickly was not the right decision. However, that's why we emphasize learning at the core of this program. Whatever decision you make will have a reflective component that accompanies that. With that reflective component is going to inform your next options and choices in a way that you can start to harness this cycle to be better in your learning ability. Everything we do, anytime we have a series of options, we make a decision, there is going to be learning that takes place from that. We either have confirmation that that was a good decision, Or we can take ourselves back to the beginning of the cycle and see that that particular decision wasn't one that worked in our favour. Then that gives us more options that we can consider as part of that process. Finally, and what I'd like to leave you with, is that consideration of what is your starting place going to be. If you are someone who does like to spend a lot of time researching, consider the fact that this is going to give you a lot of options, therefore making that right decision becomes a little bit harder without the appropriate guidance. If you're someone who likes to jump in, then be aware that as you go through this process that there may have been steps or may have been information that would have been useful to you. In each of these two different ways, what you will find is that the learning process will be enhanced. You will gain more from it, and it's not a matter of whether you are successful in the outcome, it's what you have gained through that experience that helps to inform what your next steps are going to look like.